Support for Elwood City Limits is made possible by Facebook,
Facebook.com/Elwood City Limits,
Twitter,
@ECL Podcast,
email,
ElwoodCityLimits@gmail.com,
and by subscribing on iTunes and following us on SoundCloud. Thank you.
and my free time.
Hey, sup? It's the Elwood City Limits podcast. Wow, that sounds incredibly unenthused. Welcome to the Elwood City Limits podcast. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm all over the place. I don't have a scripted intro for this, as you can tell. My name is Will Young, and this is, once more, the Elwood City Limits podcast, the episodic delving into Arthur, the PBS series from 1996 to now. And with me through this traipse through Elwood City is my friend and co-host, Lucas Mancini.
Oh, sorry, Will. You caught me with a mouthful of cereal. I was just finished eating before I chew in the listeners' ears.
Yeah, they're not going to like that.
Okay, it's all...
Those are going to be our first complaints of the show, of just like they're going to email in and be like, "Stop chewing in the microphone." And
I'm sorry. I was having my breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
That's right.
Delicious cereal.
You're trying to save up for to enter the Crunch cereal contest. Trying to get those box tops.
I gotta get those box tops. In this economy right now, payday's tomorrow, Will, and I'm feeling it. I need every box top I could get.
And for some reason, you feel the need to eat it all, despite just needing the box top. So we are a duo who is making our way through Arthur, one of our favorite shows, and we're going to get into it today with a pair of episodes. This week we're talking about one episode that we were very, very excited about, Arthur and the Crunch Cereal Contest, and its sister episode, DW Flips. Literally, in that case, sister episode. So Arthur and the Crunch Cereal Contest is the first one. Arthur starts off by practicing the piano, playing a little bit of Name That Tune with the audience. So first he's playing, simple melodies like Chopsticks and London Bridge, and then he plays something that we've never heard before.
I was 1 for 3 on this. I recognized London Bridge, Chopsticks, big old fat goose egg for Lucas in terms of guessing the song. Was not familiar with Chopsticks. And I was, of course, not familiar with the Crunch cereal theme.
Chopsticks, I feel like, is something that would be recognizable to maybe music students sooner, because I'm not super familiar with it myself. I know it enough, but not as well as like London Bridge. Yeah, so Arthur says that he made up a tune for a contest and is going to relate that story to us. DW decides to interrupt in a very unique and humorous way. She comes in with a colander on her head, and she's banging her head with a ladle and a pan, just making a humongous din. Enters, banging the pots, banging the colander on her head, stands around for a little bit, and then walks out.
This was the 90s. This was before people were aware of CTE. Because, trust me, it is not good for you to be doing that.
Do you think she was that at risk?
I would say so, yes.
The colander looked pretty sturdy, and I mean, it's her dad's, so probably, kitchen approved, real kitchen thick. Restaurant thick, restaurant grade. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, I'm not willing to find out. You won't catch me hitting myself on the head with a colander on anytime soon.
Yeah, my colander's like plastic and shaped like a lemon, so that it wouldn't make good sound anyway. So the episode begins with Dad making some kind of white oatmeal concoction for breakfast on a snowy morning. Some real, like he says, real stick to your ribs, which is definitely a dad saying. My dad says that a lot about types of food he likes. So he tries to dole it out, but it is just too thick. And he says it seems the baking soda has reacted with the molasses. Now, he must be making oatmeal,
homemade,
like real from scratch oatmeal. He must have like sown his own oats in order to combine it with baking soda and molasses. Yuck. That's a real dad food right there, too.
Oh, see, maybe I'm getting too old because I was stoked about this. The family's like disgusted. They don't want to have any part of this oatmeal. And me, I've grown to appreciate things like good homemade oatmeal in my my elder years of 22 years old. But I could see how a kid wouldn't be so stoked about it.
Sure, and I mean, I eat a lot more oatmeal these days, too. It's good for you, and it can taste good, but yeah, it's not exactly holding up in a kid's eyes to Crunch cereal, with which Arthur happily accepts as a substitute. His mom seemed really dejected that they weren't getting that homemade oatmeal. She's like, we'll have to make do with store-bought cereal. So Arthur pours out a healthy helping of Crunch cereal. Now, did you have a go-to sugary cereal in the day?
No, my parents were strictly anti-sugary cereal.
Did you have a go-to cereal at all?
I mean, my dad would buy Vector, but he would be very careful to remind me every single time we had it that it's not a cereal, it's a meal replacement.
Yep.
Which he said every single time, no exaggeration. As an adult, I've grown to love CT Crunch as a little treat for myself. I don't usually have it for breakfast, but I'll have it as a dessert. Get some Cinnamon Toast Crunch on there. It's the taste.
Like, who calls it CT Crunch? It
All
sounds
the
like
cool kids.
Concussive trauma crunch.
Well,
I thought that
we
was
got CT on the brain.
I thought that was just a dumb way of saying Captain Crunch.
No,
there's no T in there.
No, not Captain Crunch. I only get Captain Crunch when it's the only one that's on sale, and even then, not a big fan.
Shush your mouth.
Cuts the roof of your mouth. Will.
No, it doesn't.
It absolutely does.
No, Lucas, you are a lying liar.
I'm only speaking from personal experience.
Well,
hey,
you've got.
I'm not trying to yuck anybody's yum.
Well, you've got a dumb baby mouth.
Well,
because Captain Crunch is one of my absolute favorite cereals to this day. Captain Crunch is great.
Do you know Captain Crunch's real name? I used to know this.
Horatio Magellan Crunch.
I was not expecting you to get that, but it is Horatio.
How could I forget Captain Crunch's real name? It's one of my favorite names in fiction. Yeah, Captain Crunch was a big favorite of mine. We were, my mother also kind of dialed back on the big sugary ones, so, I always wanted, like, Count Chocula, Cookie Crisp.
Trix.
I did get Trix later on into my childhood. I couldn't have it right away, so it was like, Corn Pops, Rice Krispies, maybe Fruit Loops, Frosted Flakes. I didn't like Frosted Flakes as a kid. And then I never really got cinnamon. I didn't really get Cinnamon Toast Crunch or
it's so good,
Apple Jacks or anything like that. But now that I'm a man, I can buy whatever cereal I want.
Whatever cereal you please. You'll buy a box of Crave and you'll be proud of it.
I don't know.
Yep. I want this chocolate that has some cereal in it, I guess.
I might go buy a box of cereal when I get out of here. But it's like purely, it's a snack now. Like I can't eat it for breakfast. It's just like now that I'm old enough to know better. Of just
I
it
totally
is way too much sugar. So yeah.
So Crunch cereal kind of looks like Corn Pops.
Yeah,
they're just round, brown,
little multicolored. There's a couple multicolored ones in there, I think. But yeah, it's definitely the same thing as Corn Pops, which of course were pretty sugary on their own. But yeah, just little spheres.
And the iconography on the Crunch cereal box reminds me a lot of the California raisins.
Okay,
we got these
anthropomorphic,
versions of the cereal wearing these cool shades, and they're sort of performers with their white gloves and their microphones.
Yes.
So.
But there's only one in Crunch cereal. There's just the main whatever the heck.
The main guy twice. He's on the box twice.
Oh, is he twice? Yeah. Okay. Well, in the commercials, there's only one of him. It kind of reminded me of the old 7-Up mascot Cool Spot.
Oh, yeah. Except I don't think the Crunch cereal guy has his own Genesis game.
No, and it's probably not as good as Cool Spot.
That's true. Cool Spot is legitimately good.
That's a genuinely good game.
Much better than Yo Noid.
Yeah, probably.
Which is very bad.
Arthur pours out the cereal, and he finds a wrapped up kind of advertisement for the Crunch Cereal Jingle Contest, which is the Crunch Cereal Company's way of getting a new theme song. And if you compose and send a new theme song to them, they will give you a year's supply of Crunch cereal, to which Dad had a great line here of just, that's a prize? which as soon as he said that, I was like, actually, yeah, that's terrible. That's a really bad prize. And then the other half of that is like, we will also feature your jingle on our TV commercials. And it's like, man, they're really taking these kids for a ride.
Yeah, we're not going to give you any royalties.
They're just giving you more cereal to give you diabetes and just taking it for free. That stinks.
Though, as someone who lives by themselves right now and has to buy cereal for themselves, I would be pretty darn stoked on a year of free cereal.
But Well, we'll get to this. We'll get to this later. But there is another big problem with a year's supply of Crunch cereal. I mean, there's a few, but there's a big one that I'm thinking of right now. It also says include 20 box tops with each entry. Now, there were. I don't know how cereal contests work these days, but back when we were kids, the way to do it was that they had a proof of purchase that you could cut out.
Yeah.
But you didn't need the box tops. That might have been something else for maybe some other companies, which seems to me of like there is an easy way to kind of scheme that, or at least there's a lot of variables here. Okay, because like I'm just saying is that like so you rip off the box tops. Let's say I don't know if they need more math. So I'll make this as easy as I can. Like I don't know if that means you need to buy 20 boxes of Crunch and get both of the box tops.
No, it's like, so one of them is specifically the prize top. So this is like a common thing. I think this was an older thing.
Yes, I think so.
Because they reference it in TV shows a lot about like, oh, get this many box tops, we'll send you this crappy toy.
Yes.
I think it was like one of the box top is the prize box top, but in an era where you can type in codes onto the internet,
yes,
that's really how cereal box prizes goes these days. I bought a box of Fruit Loops family sized on sale a couple weeks ago, and it was like if you buy 4 or 2 of these before this date in January, you'll get $15 off your next purchase at Toys R Us.
What you usually have to do though is it's on like the inside wall of it, so you have to eat your way through it. But the other thing is that like I maybe this is more common today, of that cereal in boxes isn't loose anymore. It's in another bag. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's pretty much with every cereal I've bought. So I feel like the easy way to game this is just to immediately buy as many as you need, or get your parents to buy them, and then just take the box tops, and then you just have 20 boxes of cereal. Like this, see, it's a real ordeal Arthur puts himself through in this episode, because as I'll mention later, he's never without his Crunch cereal. So he feels, I mean, even right here, once he sees the box top thing, is that he immediately pours out a mountainous helping to DW and just like, keep eating. They're just like, because it's not in a bag inside the box, they need to eat it all and then discard it.
Maybe he's just trying not to be wasteful.
I guess, but I mean that's wasteful in its own way, of like expecting a 4-year-old to eat twice a serving of Crunch cereal.
I guess you're right.
So yeah, Arthur's eating loose Crunch throughout the episode, trying to think of a tune to think of.
So we immediately cut to outdoors. Arthur is eating Crunch cereal from the box, no bowl, like from the box with mittens on, just outdoors.
Handfuls.
This is crazy. Like, imagine being outside in the cold in the snow and you have a hand with a mitten on and you're just shoving that into a box of cereal and shoveling it back in your mouth. You're going to get mostly like lint and like... It's just not going to taste great.
There's a lot of hygienic problems with all of this. So Arthur and DW are discussing this while they're making snow forts or what have you. DW says maybe you should think of something that rhymes with Crunch besides Crunch. And Arthur kind of...
DW sort of making fun of J. Cole for rhyming almond milk with almond milk on his newest album.
Out of here, without a here, without a here. Yeah. Arthur just kind of does a response he thinks is cultured, of just like a good song has to be the perfect pairing of notes with the perfect melody. You're too young to understand great art. And then the joke is, zoom out, DW has created the thinker statue in snow. I thought that was pretty funny. So we cut then later to Arthur at school using the school piano. I liked this, actually. I thought this was really funny, of just Arthur. He's testing out notes. Like, he does one, and he's like, too sad. Next one, too silly. Next one, it'll do. And just, like, immediately knowing where you can go from by just one note, by the opening note.
But I think, like, before the era of Fruity Loops, that's how people used to get their start in, like, jingle writing and stuff. You'd get a big old keyboard, and you said, okay, where's our starting key for this? Yeah. And then just work your way down the board.
Oh, no, sure. And it makes sense of just how musically inclined Arthur is. I just thought it was funny of just, like, how you can immediately do that. It's as someone who is very much uneducated in music.
So throughout this episode, like, Arthur is like the voice actor who's playing Arthur is chewing into a microphone. That's why I did that at the start of our episode.
Right.
Is because I was like, oh man, like, this is gonna get grating of like just And it's pretty good and serviceable in terms of like, oh, well, this cereal must be pretty good, or at least Arthur's really chomping through this cereal.
It's kind of their stock Arthur chewing noise, because there's a lot of slurping in there too, because, you know, in case you need Arthur to eat soup or something.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
So I just recognize it from lo these many years. So Buster interrupts him, and it's apparently a snowball fight is on outside, and I was immediately taken aback because he says Francine has been captured by the 4th graders, and they're going to give her the powdered donut treatment. So we're talking, this gets pretty serious pretty quick. Like, Francine is a prisoner of war in this battle against the 4th graders, and she's going to get some sort of torture or treatment. The powdered donut treatment.
I was going to ask you about this, Will. Is this a thing, or did Arthur come up with this? Because I've never heard of. I can only assume powdered donut, snow. You can make some mental imagery in your mind of what the powdered donut treatment could be. I mean, later on, we see Francine kind of doused in snow under this big pile. That might just be it. But I'm still unclear on what the specifics of the powdered donut treatment are.
I have no idea if they made it up or not. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that, like, it seems really inane, because it just is like, well, powdered donut is covered in, like, you know, white powder, and it's just like you just cover her in white powder, I guess. It's like, that doesn't seem very efficient way of torturing someone, I guess.
The 4th grade version of waterboarding.
That's what I was thinking of. Just like
you're like Dick Cheney's trying to give people the powdered donut treatment left and right.
It's just like a really inadequate form of torture. And then they immediately.
Well, some people would argue that all forms of torture are inadequate at the end of the day.
Sure. Arthur and Buster. Yeah, thanks. That's where we need. This is what we need to talk about. Let's get away from this. Arthur and Buster go outside and immediately have to duck snowballs. Like, not to get back to the war imagery, but they go into the trenches.
Yeah,
they're just crawling through snowball fire, and it's like it's really strange. Like, really strange to have this kind of violent imagery. I mean,
that's how it was for me in elementary school. I remember what would happen. The older kids would build a snow fort on the corner of the fence, so that means they would have to build one less wall. I was too young and dumb to figure that out. We would try and build our snow fort in the middle of the field, so we'd have to build 4 walls.
That's like a land war in Asia. You can't win that.
And then basically we would go back and forth trying to destroy each other's snow forts, and this would last all winter. And it got violent. It's like kids would eventually stop throwing snowballs at each other and just start slamming each other into the ground physically. So
this is why my elementary school didn't allow snowball fighting.
Oh, that's some helicopter parent participation award millennial business right there. No snowball fights.
No,
I won't hear that.
I think it was probably the right call. So they're kind of still hiding and trying to get to Francine somehow, and Arthur's informing Buster about this contest, and Arthur's like, I think I've thought up the perfect title, or the perfect starting line. It goes, "Eat Crunch." Golf clap. Good one, Arthur. 10 out of 10. 5 out of 5. 5 stars, A+, 4 stars. Great job. So then Francine appears from a snowbank after Buster says that Arthur needs a band. And Francine says, thanks to you guys just yakking, I got the cream puff torture as well as the powdered donut treatment. So we have 2 different forms of dessert-related torture.
I could only imagine what the cannoli treatment might be, or the dreaded... I started that joke without having another pastry in mind.
The cupcake boarding or something.
Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
I want to get cupcake boarded.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd mind. So Francine immediately cools to them after they say they're looking to put together a band. So the next shot is Arthur and Buster auditioning students for just their different instruments. And a lot of them are background characters, like the Mrs. Fink kid from a couple of episodes ago. He's playing, I want to say, like, clarinet or something, or some sort of woodwind instrument.
We get a look at the line of people getting ready to audition, and there's like a possum who's like kind of dejected, and he's walking out the door. He just has Buster's voice, by the way.
I guess I should have taken those lessons.
Like, did this guy try and learn how to play the banjo on the spot, like in this moment? He's like, maybe I'm a savant. Maybe this will come naturally. I'm like August Rush.
That's a good one though. He definitely did have Buster's voice actor. A couple of appearances here, like George the Moose. He plays the flute and then immediately like faints from the pressure.
Yeah, he gets lightheaded or
something.
Yeah, maybe he's lack of oxygen, or maybe he's just nervous. But
could be a little bit of both. Grandma Thora shows up in this lineup of elementary school kids.
I was just gonna say, to Arthur's school.
Yeah, I don't know how this got around. Maybe he put it citywide.
I mean, we already know he has that network of poster putting up for plenty of other episodes. Grandma Thora, she plays the spoons.
That's right.
And she lets rip solid bars here.
Grandma's got a brand new hat, gonna groove it all night long.
It's like a 21 Savage song or something.
And Arthur and Buster are like, cool. And I'm like, all right, it's... I mean, I guess. Not. I don't know if 8-year-olds would be like, cool, my grandmother playing the spoons.
Playing the spoons is harder than it looks.
Oh, sure. No, I have no doubt. It's just like, I don't know if that's exactly the sound you're looking for. And then finally we cut to Binky, and this is the first of seeing him with his musical talent, maybe more than Arthur, in the sense of like, it's if Arthur was Goku, then Binky is like Piccolo, and that at one point Binky was the strongest musician in the Arthur universe. This is one of my favorite analogies to make, is that at one point Piccolo was the strongest character in Dragon Ball Z.
That's true. How far he has fallen. Yeah. Binky says, I loved this. Before Binky plays his piece, he goes, it's a solo for clarinet by some old dead dude.
Yeah, that's great, and he plays it beautifully. I definitely recognize the tune, but sometimes I have problems placing music, so I couldn't recognize immediately what it was, but I definitely know the tune. And so it's his first time playing the clarinet, and we'll see a lot more of that as we go on. So Arthur assembles the band, which is mostly his friends and his grandmother, and Mrs. McGrady in his dad's garage.
It's like a shed or a garage or something.
Yeah. And so Arthur is just trying to get his own vision across.
So I love the details of this. This is one of the reasons I love Arthur, is because they notice the little things.
Yes.
So now that Arthur is trying to conduct this band, he's got his sleeves rolled up, his shirt's untucked, and now this whole episode is actually really strange with foresight. It almost seems like it's a Whiplash parody in parts. But of course, it couldn't be a Whiplash parody because Whiplash came out like last year or the year before, and this episode came out in the mid-90s.
Yes.
But the parallels are uncanny.
Absolutely. I definitely see that because, of course, at this point, as the episode goes on, Arthur kind of loses himself to the grip of, I'll say music madness a little bit. Yeah, I loved the detail of him being disheveled, like you said, with his shirt untucked. I think it looks great. He's just like so into this. And so at this point, he's trying to get his point across, which he's not... It's worth noting he's not really sure what he wants. He just kind of knows it has to be his because he's the one doing all the legwork. So at this point, everybody kind of starts putting in their own ideas and turning it into more of a jam session than like a professional recording.
Arthur's like, "What is this? A fish concert?"
Yeah, they're just jamming. So it's like Sue Ellen, Brain, Muffy, Francine. They all have their own ideas of what they want to do, and they start jamming, which is fine. But then Arthur just vehemently reacts and asserts himself, as Arthur rarely does, of just like. It's like, I've got the entry form. I've eaten 15 boxes of Crunch, and this is my jingle, so we're going to play it my way. And, like, a lot harsher than I'm putting out. I don't want to scream into the mic, but just, like, he is belting this out like he is yelling at the top of his lungs.
But, yeah, he's, like, channeling his inner J.K. Simmons.
Yeah.
My jingle, my way, my tempo. Yeah, like, I couldn't help but, like, think of Whiplash.
Getting ready to throw a cymbal at the brain or something.
Could you imagine
So they try and do something. I was just kind of confused at this point, like that. But I think it's more of that Arthur himself doesn't know what he wants. Of just like he doesn't have a tune, like he doesn't have anything written down, but he needs a band just on the insistence of Buster. And also, I was confused at this point because I wanted to know, so do you send in like the sheet music of your thing? Like later Arthur records himself, but it's like we're 1996. The best you could do is on tape.
Yeah.
So or like video or something, but I was curious because like Arthur didn't have any recording equipment, so I'm like, is he getting this on tape? Does he have a videotape set up?
And this is kind of answered a little bit later, but I think like because I was wondering this too, because we never actually see the recording of the song. We just see Arthur putting a cassette into an envelope. So maybe like he's just got one of those like old 8-track recorders, and he was gonna record some awful like mono one-channel like of the entire performance or something. Because when he submits it later on, it's just him singing it. I believe.
It's like might as well be recorded on a talk boy or something. So eventually everybody leaves after they make this like this one big note, and they're just kind of like Arthur not being professional, kind of yelling at them. It's like they've had enough. So, and they're not being paid to be there, or they're not in Arthur's college music program,
Exactly.
So they're not indebted to be there because they want to be the best. A great line here of just Arthur kind of slowly spiraling down even more of just like Buster's just like, maybe you should give it a rest for a while. And Arthur says, did Mozart give it a rest? Did the guy who wrote Ring Around the Rosie give it a rest? I don't think so, Buster. And it's like it's a great delivery, and I really think there's some great voice work in this episode. Thought that was really funny. Eventually, Arthur just kind of resigns himself to the fact that he'll never think something up, and then just out of the blue, he hears DW humming a tune that is all her own while she's brushing Nadine's hair, and he kind of peeks in on her, and she ends up coming up with the Crunch cereal jingle. I'll put it right here.
Oh, I have a hunch, breakfast, dinner, and lunch would be so fun to munch if I had it with Nadine.
So yeah, that's the jingle, and those are essentially the words to it, except DW's is, has to do with Nadine, and then Arthur immediately steals it, but just kind of is hit by inspiration.
He pulls the end of Back to the Future, where it's like...
Yeah, you know that new sound you're looking for?
It's your cousin!
Marvin Crunch?
Yeah.
So Arthur ends up recording it on tape and showing it to Buster. Like, this tape has dynamo quality. Like, it sounds great. Sounds like they recorded it in like a recording studio.
Yeah, you kind of have to suspend your disbelief for this. We understand the audio-visual process of all this.
Yeah.
This is one of those things where, like, this happens at kids' shows all the time, wherever there's, like, a film competition or, like, a movie contest where, like, kids are putting out, like, cinematic quality video, and you're like, wait, how did they edit this? Wait, where did this come from? Huh?
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to suspend your disbelief.
I just wanted to log it and continue on. So now Arthur has to mail it in with all of his box tops and all that sort of stuff and the entry form. So all he has to do is bring it to the mailbox, which leads to what I'm going to say is, to this point, one of the funniest parts of any Arthur episode so far this season. And this one's going to be hard to top because it's great physical comedy, and I really have to commend the animators for having this come across so well, and it's written very well, and it's just incredibly funny. Just Arthur, it's kind of a pulled back shot of Arthur running down the street, and then all of a sudden DW kind of pulls up. She's pulling a toboggan, and Arthur like trips over her and careens into the street. And it's made even better by the fact that DW's line is, "Watch it, you maniac. You want to end up a pile of roadkill?" It's just a terrific scene, and I watched it 3 times. I laughed so hard. It was awesome.
Yeah, it's a funny episode.
And actually, it continues on from here, I have to say. DW says Nadine and her have decided that Arthur needs to eat more fruit, which I'm guessing after all of the diabetes that Arthur is just on the razor's edge of, he definitely needs more fruit. So she gives him an apple as a gift. And then I also thought this was really funny, and I have to commend the voice acting for this, of the back and forth here of Arthur and DW. Is she's just like, "Oh, is that your jingle for the new contest?" And I was just kind of like, "This? Yes, yes, it is." And then DW wants to hear it, and great line here from Arthur of just, "Oh, munch, crunch, snap, pop, fizz," something like that.
It's like not that bad. The one he comes up with on the spot's like kind of serviceable.
But it's just
Munch, crunch, snap, pop, fizz. Yeah, they really capture the emotion of like this dude's in distress. He in distress. He's backed into a corner. He's got to come up with something, and he's got to come up with it now.
He's taking the ejector seat out of this conversation to get away from DW because he doesn't want her to find out that he took her song.
Arthur says the contest deadline is tomorrow. I hope he's paying for next day shipping.
Yeah. Another suspension of disbelief. I actually missed that one. Then we get this. So like Arthur falls in front of the mailbox, and like we see, I'm sorry, he doesn't fall, but he like stops at the mailbox, kind of takes a bite out of the apple, and we get again. This is really funny. We get this imagination scene of Arthur. He's in a tuxedo, and he's playing an outdoor, like an open air piano concert where he's like playing his Crunch cereal theme to like a sold out crowd. And I just thought the idea of this again open air winter piano concert was ludicrous, but in a funny way. In his imagination, DW kind of pushes her way up to the front of the line and like immediately collapses.
Yeah, she sounds like completely decrepit. She's
yeah,
like, Arthur.
She sounds sickly. She's like, not sickly, but like very meek, of just like, Arthur, over here. And then she pushes her way and she falls down. And Arthur's like, DW, are you all right? And she has the apple in her hand and she's just like, here.
It is really funny, but it also doesn't really make any sense.
It doesn't, but
I get this is supposed to symbolize Arthur's guilt over stealing the song.
Yeah.
But what does DW giving him the apple have to do with anything?
It's this total flight of fancy of just like combining Arthur's greatest dream with like his biggest guilt, and I think it's really funny, like surreal in a very restrained way. But I don't know. I just thought this was great. So we have Arthur kind of pull a face of like he's having a dilemma. And then the next morning, DW's watching TV, Bionic Bunny for some reason.
Yeah, I thought she didn't like Bionic Bunny.
I don't know, but she's laughing at it. So maybe she's like Mystery Science Theater. Maybe she's like Crow T Robot and Tom Servo.
Tom Servo. How did I forget Tom Servo? He's my favorite one.
Well, I just kept thinking of like Gypsy, and I'm like, Gypsy wasn't in those parts.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so then Arthur wakes up and he comes down and he hears his song on the Crunch Cereal Contest, which, of course, is DW's song, and he rushes to the TV to make sure she doesn't hear the whole thing, but she doesn't seem to let on that she knows what it is.
He rushes in front of the TV. The song's still playing, but like he's just blocking the imagery.
Yeah, to which DW says, this commercial isn't as good as the old one. Doesn't seem to know right away. So once again, they're sitting down for bowls of Dad's oatmeal. He says, 1 bowl and you won't be hungry till dinner.
Oh, man, I got to get me some of that oatmeal.
There's some sort of like, I was gonna say some sort of stomach leech on that, but I guess it'd be the opposite. It'd be like a leech that like barfs stuff into your stomach.
Maybe Arthur's dad invented Soylent.
Could be, or like some sort of expanding kind of tofu or molasses that just it cannot be digested.
The little bread from The Force Awakens, where she puts that stuff on
right,
it gets all big.
Or the or lembas bread from Lord of the Rings. It's like you eat a corner of it and you're that's all you need to eat for the day. So knock at the door and they are intercepted by a representative from the Crunch Cereal Company. And I wrote down immediately, I want that hat.
Oh, man, so dope.
It's a fantastic hat. Like, he's got the whole thing. He's got a jacket. He's got shades. And this hat is like, it's kind of like a cap, but the top of it is sort of concave, and it looks like a bowl of cereal. And it's great. Because if it's not a bowl of cereal, it still looks cool. If it is a bowl of cereal, that's even better.
It's very convenient. It's like those hats where they have the 2 beers and the straws.
Right.
You could like wear that to a NASCAR race.
Totally.
Just grab cereal out of your head and munch on it.
Or like put chips in there or something.
Yeah.
The possibilities are endless.
Oh, man, fill it with guac? Now we're talking.
What, just get a handful of guac and just...
No, you got, I guess you
suck
need
it
a
out of your
separate...
hand?
So you got a fanny pack filled with chips.
Okay.
The guac's in your head.
Yeah,
you dip it into your own head.
That's okay. I like this.
Delete this part from the podcast. We got to patent this.
So they come with a literal dump truck of cereal. And now this is the thing. So year's supply of stuff, I feel like that was kind of an older prize of like getting a year's supply of a product. And, you know, depending on the product, may not be all that good. If it's a toiletry or something, that's cool. But in this case, here's another big problem. So I think we kind of already established that Arthur needs to eat all of these boxes of Crunch because once you open it, it's going to go bad if you don't. Because there's no plastic seal around what's inside, so you can't get the box tops that way. So they just gave them like 100 boxes of loose cereal. Like 3/4 of that is gonna go bad. It's gonna go so bad. Like you're gonna get to month 2 and it's stale. And I just this seems incredibly inefficient.
I think it's like a really funny visual gag, like this dump truck dropping off like 52 boxes of cereal.
For
or
sure.
whatever.
But that was my first and major concern.
I think in real life, the way your supplies work is they send it to you like as you need it. So it's like, out of cereal, get those Crunch people to mail me some more cereal.
Yeah, they like give you a bunch of vouchers or something for the grocery store.
I think they really wanted to have like this Crunch foreman with his ridiculous hat like drop off this foreman. This like massive. Like it's like the pile of money from The Dark Knight where when the Joker sets it on fire.
Sliding down the Crunch cereal boxes.
Yeah.
It's about sending a message.
It's about sending. It's funny.
Well, how about I feed Crunch cereal to your dogs? And then we'll find out just how loyal a hungry pup is. Yeah.
This button will unload the Crunch cereal on the other boat. But if they press the button...
Tell me where the Crunch cereal is! Where the Crunch cereal? Tell me where it is! I'm not wearing hockey pads.
Because I'm not wearing Crunch cereal.
And then they could do a sequel. They expect the Crunch cereal in the wreckage, brother.
He's probably wondering why you would create... Perhaps he's wondering why you would create a jingle without giving him the box tops. Nobody cared who I was.
No.
Nope.
Oh, that's so stupid. Oh,
whatever.
No.
Let's finish this episode before this gets worse.
It's a big pile of Crunch cereal.
Yeah, big pile of
for
Crunch.
you.
Thought we were done. You really got me with that one. It would be extremely crunchy. You'll eat it for you.
Okay.
All right. Man, I love the Bane voice. I still do. So, yeah, and it's revealed that the winner of the Crunch Cereal Jingle Contest is attributed to DW, who is, of course, very surprised. And in the final scene, we see them outside stacking Crunch Cereal boxes, like to just store better, I guess. Arthur admits to stealing her tune. What DW isn't angry with him. She's more upset that he used that crummy tune and that she has way better ones than that.
And then she comes through
with we'll this one, and we'll put it right here.
Oh, everyone thinks that my brother stinks like a piece of yellow cheese. But me, I say that he's okay as long as there's a breeze.
Which is great.
Damn, son, where'd you find this? Exclusive. Trapaholics.
Real trap poop.
Young chap on the beat.
Mike Will made it. Yeah, and no, it's awesome, and it's just a very funny way to end the episode. And Arthur kind of beans her with a couple snowballs, and that's that, and that's the end of the Crunch Cereal Contest. Okay, so this was actually strange. So the video that I sent you, the one we watched, didn't have a Now a Word from His Kids on it, but I really wanted to see this one because I remembered what it was. It was that they got kids in the classes to make their own Crunch cereal jingle.
What? That sounds awesome.
And I know that a couple of them rapped it.
Oh, Will, I gotta look this up.
No, but I tried and I can't find it.
Oh, man.
Normally, okay, a little bit inside Arthur here, inside the podcast, but normally the Daily Motion episodes have the whole thing. This one didn't. It just cut it off, and so I can't find it. If you can find this, the A Now a Word from His Kids segment for this one, please send it to us. It's really, really good.
I hope our favorite Boston Casey Affleck sounding kid was there.
Crunch
cereal.
Crunch cereal.
Crunch cereal. It's Crunch Munch.
So we get to the second half of the episode, which is DW Flips. And as we'll find out, this episode actually, not beginning with an Arthur narration for once. It actually begins in medias res, that old movie technique. We begin the story as it is nearly wrapped up. DW is looking to prove to someone who we are not aware of who it is yet, that she can do something. And there's not much point to explaining this part because we'll get to it later. It's just DW about to do apparently a flip on a balance beam.
All I'll say,
and does it work? We get kind of a zoom into her face and like, what's going to happen? And like, tune in to find out, true believer.
all I'll say about this is like I didn't recognize this episode title, DW Flips, which she inevitably, figuratively, and literally does. But the second I saw this opening sequence is tattooed on my brain, and the ending as well. Specifically the dialogue and the camera cuts, like everything about this I remember vividly because I used to make fun of it all the time.
Really?
This was like one of my go-to jokes on the playground is I would reference this specific episode of Arthur and like kind of reenact it for people.
Okay, so are you going to let us in on this, or are you going to wait till we get to that part?
We'll get to the end. I don't have it quite memorized as good now, but
well,
there's specific sounds and stuff that like, it all came flooding back.
I think I'll know what you mean. Hopefully we'll be able to communicate it. So the actual episode begins with Arthur watching TV, DW bored on the couch. So Arthur is watching the Winter Olympics, and he's watching luge. So I took the liberty of looking this up. So this episode was aired in 1996, the end of 1996. So like the winter, obviously. However, in 1996, that was a Summer Olympics year. They were in Atlanta, Georgia that year. In fact, you would know it as the Olympics where Kurt Angle won his gold medals.
Also, like they flip it again back to the Olympics, and it's gymnastics on later on.
Yeah.
Gymnastics is not a winter sport.
Right.
They only play it during the Summer Olympics, so it is weird. The commentary team needs to be fired for this bobsled race. You could hear one of the guys go, "Boy, I wouldn't want to fall off the back of that, Bob." Yeah, great. Awesome,
Yeah,
like play-by-play there, my dude.
Yeah, great banter there.
Yeah.
But, we need actual, like, this is a real sport. We need, like, analysis here.
That's like if I was watching fencing and be like, I'm sure glad that's not going to stab through me. Like,
Mamma mia! Yeah, exactly. Just wanted to point out, so 1996 was the Summer Olympics year. The Winter Olympics before this, it was in 94 in Lillehammer, Norway, and in 1998 it was in Nagano, Japan.
When was Salt Lake? Was that 99?
2002.
2002, really? Okay.
I think, yes, because Sydney was 2000, and Salt Lake City was 2002. So DW is very, very bored, and they fight over the remote control, kind of flip through a few channels, and then they end up settling on gymnastics, which DW is immediately entranced with. It's a performance by Tina Trampolina. Jeez, if you're not born and bred for gymnastics, it's right there in the name.
It's sort of like Schmirler the Curler.
Yeah. If such a person exists,
you don't know Schmirler the Curler?
Oh, this is real.
She was a famous CBC broadcaster. She was a famous medal-winning curler in the Olympics.
I didn't know this. I'm sorry.
Canadian heroine. Yeah, she.
What's her first name?
Sandra Schmirler the Curler.
Okay.
And she would always say she was the only athlete whose last name rhymed with the sport she played.
Well, my apologies to Sandra Schmirler. I honestly didn't know. I think the most high-profile curler I know is probably Colleen Jones, if that's her name.
I'm not a big curling aficionado, but
it's Colleen something. Again, apologies to any real curling fans. You can let me have it over email. So DW is entranced with what she sees. She goes to talk to her mom, and then we get a "here we go again" from Arthur, implying that this is not the first time DW has had her heart set on something, maybe before she should. And we get into that here. She's begging her mom to let her take gymnastics, and her mom reminds her of different bids that DW had for other sports, like t-ball, where she took a few swings, didn't hit the ball, and then immediately quit.
She's got a great excuse, though. She goes, I can only hit balls that move.
The excuses she comes up with are great. Like, they're very good at deflecting. They are reminiscent of a certain presidential elect, I'll say. They are fine deflections. Yes, I can only hit balls that move. In ballet class, she needed a stool to help her, like, lift her leg up, to which she says, I have weak knees. And then violin, where she's just playing it like a guitar and doesn't even try to use the string. And she says, I could have been really good if they didn't make me use that stick.
While she's telling her mom, she's trying to convince her mom to let her take these gymnastics lessons. And she says, I could be, if I'll win the gold medal,
Yes.
And I could do cereal commercials. And I was thinking, this is another case where it's kind of weird how they put these two episodes together, because it's like, girl, you already did a cereal commercial.
That's right. And
you wrote the Crunch theme.
That's right. She didn't see any money from it. So eventually her mom gives in, and DW is overjoyed. So we go to her first day of gymnastics class. And, of course, a lot of her teammates, her classmates in gymnastics are her classmates at preschool. So
almost like an exact, like, everybody from her preschool class is in this
gymnastics for sure,
class.
Including the Tibble twins, which interesting choice to put the Tibbles in gymnastics, of all things. I know it's probably a very good way to burn off their energy, but gymnastics was never something I was interested in as a kid, and I did soccer and stuff like that.
So this episode's kind of near and dear to my heart because DW is very similar to my little sister in this episode. My little sister was sort of a girl of many hobbies. She learned how to play the drums for a while. Currently, she does lacrosse, but before that, she did gymnastics for a lot of her early years. And so that was something she was really interested in. So I have a lot of memories as a kid of like going to pick up Michaela from gymnastics class and stuff like that. So DW sort of patterned off for her, but I certainly wasn't that type of kid who did all these extracurricular activities back in the day. Though, hey, the Tibbles, maybe they're trying to work on their core strength.
Could be.
GSP was a gymnast.
Gymnastics.
Well, that turned out.
Gymnastics are a great like they're a great sport to do when you're young. Like I wish, because when I was younger, I didn't do gymnastics because I thought it was for girls, and I feel like I really missed out by being so narrow-minded as a child. I should have taken to gymnastics because, man, those are some things that you can carry with you.
It's a great base for professional wrestling.
That's true. That's one of my things of just like I wish I did collegiate wrestling. I wish I did gymnastics. I wish I did anything else like boxing that could have led me to wrestling. But I'm also not really much of an athlete, so probably wouldn't have went that far anyway. So we get introduced to someone who ends up being a big part of DW's world in preschool, and that would be Emily, the girl rabbit character, who is apparently Miss Perfect, who is escorted to the gymnastics lesson by her French nanny Renee.
It's funny, though, because at first you think Emily's going to just be like, oh, this is like Mini Muffy.
Yeah.
This is Muffy all over again. But there's differences in her character.
Yeah, no.
She's got some depth to her. And I actually really like, what I like about this episode is, not to get too ahead of myself, this is sort of the introduction of DW's world. We had peeks into it before.
Yeah.
We saw her go to preschool, bring a frog, all that kind of stuff. But now we're getting a look at, okay, this is what the DW episodes are kind of going to be like when they deal with her sort of circle, her peers.
Yeah, because other than the beginning and maybe once or twice, Arthur's not really in this episode at all. So it's all about her. That's where the spotlight is. DW has kind of an imagination of how good she hopes she'll be, and it's kind of like imagining herself at the Olympics and like doing this unbelievable routine on the balance beam.
The physics-defying routine.
It's like a flip into like flying for a short amount of time and then dismounting onto her butt. And I noticed that when she dismounted, did you hear the Windows fanfare?
No, I did not.
The Windows 95. Meh.
I didn't hear that. That's awesome.
It's totally in there.
I just noticed when she dismounts, she's sort of sitting like cross-legged, like Zenyatta from Overwatch. She sort of peacefully like floats down.
It's the having tea dismount. You'll notice that she's holding an imaginary cup. So I thought that was funny. And then finally they go to like the medal ceremony in DW's imagination, and man, DW can be real savage when she wants to be. So it's like, of course, DW gets the gold medal, and then the commentators of this are just like, let's not forget about the other medal winners. Emily, what's her name, gets the silver medal. Not very perfect.
Yeah, Emily, not so perfect. What's her name?
And then the guy giving her the medal like yawns as if he's bored.
That's a really funny.
And then finally, Timmy and Tommy Tibble receive the bronze, but everybody knows they should have been disqualified. And the guy like coin flips it at them so that they can fight over it.
And like, why should have they been disqualified? Was there a doping scandal like with Timmy and Tommy in DW's imagination?
Probably.
What's up with that?
Probably excessive rowdiness, or they did a Tanya Harding to Edwin later on in the episode. And Edwin's just like, why?
Win or lose, it's a clean sweep for America at this imaginary Olympics.
That's right. Not much of competition.
Also, intergender gymnastics.
Yeah, there you go. So DW tries to go on the balance beam, but is immediately stopped by apparently her preschool teacher as well. Like, this is just the same this is just Miss Morgan again. And so I'm just like, is this the same person?
I was wondering the same thing, and I wasn't sure because I was like, is this just Miss Morgan?
Yeah.
But I guess it is. I guess, like, not only did her class come with her, but her preschool teacher is also a gymnast?
Yeah. So their first thing to learn is a somersault, which is pretty basic. I remember this reminded me of when I did swimming lessons. Eventually, you had to learn how to dive, and there were 2 dives that you had to do, and one of them was a somersault roll into the water, and I was terrified because I didn't want to go head over heels, and I couldn't do it. So I had to practice it. I had to practice a somersault roll on my mom's bed until I got it, and then I finally did, and I was so happy. So this reminded me of that, and of course, I never use that again.
Well, practice makes perfect. DW wants to jump right into the deep end, to steal your swimming metaphor. She wants to get right up on the balance beam. And Miss Morgan explains, she goes, oh, no, we won't be doing that for at least a year. DW responds, a year? I'll be old by then.
It's true. She'll be a whole 5. She'll be halfway through her first 10 years. So the first thing is Miss Morgan's like, everybody find a partner. And Emily asks DW if she wants to be her partner. Then she looks over at like this dog kid who is kind of another background character who I always like the design of. He's this like little brown dog, and I think he's cute. But it's just like, looks at him, and then DW's like, I guess so. I'm like,
it's so funny.
And I was like, what was wrong with the dog kid? What do you got against the dog kid?
Maybe he smells. We all knew someone who just kind of smelled in elementary school. Nothing against smelly people personally.
He looks like a nice kid. If you want to name the dog kid,
ooh, yes.
Yeah, we need a name for him.
Scruff McGruff, whatever you can pick up.
Okay, let's not be racist about it.
What? He's not racist.
It's a dog.
He's taking a bite out of crime.
Yeah, but that's like I don't know. I think that plays into dog stereotypes we don't need to get into. He can have a perfectly normal name.
So the instructions for doing a somersault is very similar to doing a lucha libre bump. Miss Morgan tells them to tuck your head and roll.
Tuck your head and roll. That's how you do an arm drag. So DW kind of botches hers at first. Emily tries to correct her, and DW says, for your information, I was doing a half salt. You're supposed to do it that way. A theme throughout this episode when they're in the gymnastics part is that DW will just cut down anything Emily does in an attempt to try and take her down a peg in whatever way she can, because I think this is very interesting to her character. Competition brings out the worst in DW. She wants to win and be the best so bad, and she's willing to cut any corner and just undermine other people's success. At least at the outset, she's very jealous.
But it's also, like, she kind of has a reason to be. Like, Emily, and maybe this is coming from a person like me who isn't the most, athletically gifted person in the world, but Emily is, even early on, a little bit of, like, kind of a pompous show-off. She's always, sometimes you just love to hate people who get everything right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I completely understand. And I think it's more, it's a combination of, I feel like there is literally a point where she is showing off, but it's also like it comes so naturally to her that she kind of doesn't realize that she's frustrating other people by like being so openly good at it. I also must note here when they go on to do cartwheels, when they go on to learn cartwheels, the first kid to try is terrified, and he is the Edwin, the loser in polka dot shorts. And I really related to him of just like shorts and a t-shirt in some sort of athletic thing, and he is unfortunately woefully outmatched and just not confident enough in himself to do a proper cartwhole. And
I'm also digging his haircut, man. It's like gelled, like between the ears.
That's cute. I thought he was also a cute little kid. So yeah, definitely relate to Edwin in that sense. So DW in her off time from gymnastics is practicing her cartwheels. And I have to note here, so like there's a couple of short things of like her mom takes her to get groceries and she's cartwheeling down the aisles, and her problem is that not that she can't do it, is that she can't stop herself. So that's a problem. And to which I was like, that's actually, she's more than halfway there. She can do a pretty good cartwheel and continuously, she just can't stop.
Also, of all the places to practice a cartwheel, a grocery store might be the most inappropriate. It's definitely in that upper echelon of like places you don't want to be doing cartwheels in. Lots of things to knock over.
Yeah.
She's sort of taking bumps all over the grocery store like she's Booker T.
For sure.
Fighting Stone Cold.
For sure. So eventually they're going to be doing cartwheels again, and DW's thing is that she wants to do hers well, but she wants to kind of outshine Emily, get her own moment to shine. So it is. They kind of all line up for cartwheels again. Cartwheels and is able to stop, and that's kind of her moment. But then all of a sudden, Emily comes cartwheeling in and does it absolutely perfectly and longer than she did. And I have to actually appreciate Miss Morgan here, who immediately chides Emily for saying, showing off is very impolite. And I'm like, okay, in like a lesser cartoon, they would immediately be like, wow, look at what she did. But it's just like, no, actually, that's really impolite and not appropriate. So DW finally had her moment, and Emily kind of took it away. She kind of stole the spotlight. DW is really frustrated at this point. And
she flips, for lack of a better term.
Vents her frustration to Emily, and then immediately is just like, bet you can't do a flip on the balance beam. And Emily says, neither can you. And then we lead into the beginning of the episode, which is DW is going to try to do a flip on the balance beam.
And the way this is put together, the way it's so tightly edited and everything and voice acted, like the way it ratchets up the tension is so great. Mm-hmm. The Tibbles so the music is already like increasing in pace, and as this is happening, everybody's gathering to watch DW get on this balance beam. The Tibbles go, if you don't make it, DW, can we have your toys?
Right.
So we're setting like, this is grim. This is a matter of life and death, which it may very well be if you were a completely untrained 4-year-old and you tried to cartwheel on a balance beam.
She could get really hurt, as you and I both well know. So she goes to do a flip, and she's like going to lose her balance.
And so this is the part I used to make fun of for kicks as a kid, and other kids would have seen this episode, so they got the joke I was making. She kind of loses her balance for a good, 10 seconds straight.
Yeah,
where she's like,
flailing.
And so as a kid, I would reenact the scene, but I was just keep doing it, like, as long as I could, and so I would make it, like, as long as possible. And people would be like, oh, it's funny, she is unrealistic. Even then, I was pointing out the inaccuracies in Arthur, even in my early years.
So Miss Morgan, Emily goes to tell Miss Morgan and brings her in along with DW's mom, and DW jumps into Mom's arms and saying she just wanted to do a flip, and that's the end of that. And then near the end of the episode, the Tibbles kind of come in, and now this whole episode they've kind of been riding DW a little bit of just like, it's like, oh, Emily kind of did it better than you, and kind of goading her into doing it. And this time they're getting on Emily's case, and they say, you told the teacher so that DW wouldn't do something better than you.
They got no love for snitches.
No, and but then DW is the one to stick up for her. And they're just like, but she stopped you from doing her cartwheel. And then DW just kind of sticks up for Emily. And I don't think she really explicitly, or maybe she does, but it's because Emily did save her from doing something stupid. So she realizes that. And I got to say, DW is the bigger person in this. And I think Emily kind of realizes that too, of just like, thanks her for defending her from the Tibbles, and they kind of meet at a truce, and this is where they become friends. Like, I think Emily becomes DW's best friend her own age, and this is kind of where it all starts. And I can help you practice cartwheels, and DW is like, as long as you promise to stop being perfect all the time.
You could be my wingman anytime. No, you could be
mine.
Mine.
Exactly.
It is a great introduction of Emily as a character, though. Like, as opposed to, like, if you remember Nadine's introduction, it was a tad clunky. It was just like, here's Nadine. She's magic. But Emily's like, this is a really cool, like, redemptive arc where it's like, oh, they're not friends at first. She's kind of stuck up. And then we realize, none of that matters.
Emily seems like a very realistic character, in that I've met a lot of people before who are just like naturally good at things that I'm not, and then you kind of get an impression of them without really talking to them. And it's not and not necessarily in this case. Emily is kind of flaunting it at DW, but at first I don't think she is. She's just kind of naturally good and doesn't realize that she's being showy with it because she's a kid. And I think that's very true to life. I think I've met a lot of people like that. So, and eventually they do make up, and I think it's those kind of things do happen. So I kind of appreciated that it was, like you said, very realistic. And so on the drive home, DW's getting a talking to from her mom, and she says she'll be careful. And the end of the episode is that DW spots horseback riding, girls doing horseback riding, and then she's like, "Mommy," and she's like, "No, DW, you're too young to take riding lessons." And then so it leads to DW begging to take riding lessons, and here we go again.
If this episode kept going on, maybe eventually DW would start on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu eventually.
BJJ. Yeah, could be. All right, so let's break it down finally. Let's start with Arthur and the Crunch Cereal Contest. What do you think?
It's a really funny episode.
Yeah.
And I actually really liked the ending of this episode because it could have ended in a really clunky way. I wasn't exactly sure where it was going. I thought Arthur was going to do this lie where he took credit for the song, and then it was sort of going to be that really lazy rom-com writing of oh no, here's the part where the lie falls apart around him and he has to learn his lesson. But no, in the end we realize Arthur had a change of heart and he put DW's name in all along.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really a really touching way to end the episode. And I also like the characterization of DW in that she didn't really care about anything about it. She's very
ambivalent.
Yeah, she barely recognized her song. She was like, oh, whatever.
It's I got way better ones than those. No, you're right. I think it's actually kind of rare for a TV show to not have. I mean, I guess Arthur does kind of learn a lesson, but it's not because he did something wrong. Like you said, in another cartoon, it would be Arthur submits it, he gets all the credit, and then eventually admits publicly, no, actually it was my sister who wrote it. But it was due to they relied on Arthur's own character that they've built up so far to be no, he realizes this is wrong, and in the 11th hour, he does the right thing.
He comes to the conclusion himself, not because of events surrounding him.
Exactly. And I think that that's actually a very strong indicator of who Arthur is as a person, which chalks up to very good writing. And like I said, this episode is hilarious. I had a blast watching this. This was one I was really looking forward to, and I was not disappointed. This is absolutely one of my favorites. It's funny. The animation is good. I like kind of the development of Arthur's character. I like the little moments that DW gets. It's very rare to have an episode where she and Arthur don't fight that much, and her character is very much detached from a lot of what's going on, which I thought was a very interesting role to play. No, I really, really liked it. Then into DW Flips. I wasn't as crazy about this one. I would say I'm kind of a bit lukewarm on it. I kind of thought that I do appreciate that we get DW-centric episodes. I think those are important, and DW is one of the stronger characters on the show and absolutely deserves more development, as does her world. And, I think we agree that Emily is a good character to introduce to her part of the Arthur universe. But the whole thing itself, I kind of felt, I felt some of the gymnastics stuff didn't really have too much of a structured story. She kind of it relied a lot on just slapstick vignettes of of DW doing cartwheels and that sort of stuff, and then she does cartwheels once, then she does it again and does it better. I guess she learns how to stop. I don't know. I just didn't really feel invested in the whole thing, into DW's plight in terms of the technicalities of it. I don't know if I'm explaining myself
No, I get it.
well enough. I think that it was interesting to see that part of her personality under competition and being against this type of character like Emily is. But in terms of the nuts and bolts of DW couldn't stop on a cartwheel and now she can. Okay. And I don't know if we see DW do gymnastics very much anymore. So, I know that that's not the point. And I'm not saying it's a bad episode because of all that. I'm just saying I wasn't as invested in it because of those reasons. I still think it's, a couple good lines here and there, some good characterization, all that sort of stuff. It's a fine episode. I just don't have much personal attachment to it.
So I kind of liked the episode, and I liked it. You said something at the end that I totally think is why I like the episode. I think it's really realistic in portraying the way kids talk and react to each other, which is actually really rare in kids shows because, of course, adults are writing it. So a lot of times, kids in kids shows will sound like adults. But I think it's really interesting to see DW in these situations where instead of reacting to things Arthur and his friends do, her peers, I love seeing DW interact with her peers because I think the way the dialogue's written, the way the Tibbles will egg her on, the way DW perceives Emily, the way Emily looks at DW, it's a lot on how kids actually really do compartmentalize things and how they talk to one another. And so I really appreciate that in media when I see it in stories, and so I liked it here a lot. I also think the episode kind of moves at a clip. With the exception of DW cartwheeling around that grocery store, it's like, okay, she wants to get into gymnastics. She's in gymnastics. Here's the tension. And I do really like the way this episode's framed. That opening, you're like, what's going on here? Is she going to fall? Is she going to break her neck? What's going on?
I actually wasn't a fan of that. I don't really like
that. Might be nostalgia clouding my judgment.
I don't like to look ahead to the episode that's going to happen. Like, a lot of TV shows will do that. Just like, here's what's going to happen on this episode. And I'm just like, I don't want to know that. Like, just surprise me, or else I'm going to be looking for those moments of just like, that was in the opening credits. Like Battlestar Galactica used to do that in the opening credits, and it's just like, here's what's going to happen on this episode, and I would skip past it because I'm like, I don't want to know. And so
someone's going to make out. Are they a robot?
Right.
That's everything I know about Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica for you. Yeah, and I also think just to your point, I agree with you that I think in this episode, yes. And in general, the Arthur writers are very good at writing believable child characters. In general, so, nobody's perfect all the time. But I think in general, this is an example of that. But there's going to come a time where that's going to, like, I know that that's true because I've seen seasons and seasons of Arthur. Like, I know that that's going to remain fairly true. So I don't want to use that as a positive too much because it's like, it's almost a given at this point as far as I'm concerned. So,
but it definitely, like, I think what I'm trying to say is that, like, the tone with the younger characters is different. Like, the way DW and her peers interact is distinctively different than the way it's distinct. Yeah, double negative. Well, but it's different than the way Arthur and his friends act.
Yeah.
And even though one's 5 and one's 8, it shows how different 4 and 8. It shows how different those worlds are 4 years apart, and I actually kind of like that. I like the detail of that. I also think I found the episode a little bit funnier, maybe than you did. I thought this was a real funny pair of 2 episodes.
Yeah, and of course that's just kind of my personal opinion, and it's not even that I thought it was bad. I just kind of thought it was okay, and I definitely felt stronger about the first one, which I thought was excellent. So I really don't think you can go wrong with this pair of episodes. It's a great 2-pair, a real classic from season 1. And if you haven't checked it out already, you definitely should. So thanks a lot for listening to Elwood City Limits. Really appreciate you listening as always. So Lucas, we're going to quickly run down the ways that, of course, you can get in touch with us. First one is Facebook. That is kind of our primary method of updating. We, post the episode on there. We will post screen caps and all that fun stuff. Questions as well from time to time, and we'll update you when we're going to be recording. We are also on Twitter at ECL Podcast. Some fun retweets and screen caps over there. Give us a follow. And now we're on Tumblr, elwoodcitylimits.tumblr.com. So you can find us over there. And some more of that fun stuff. In fact, I'd say that's a really great way to interact if Facebook and Twitter aren't really your thing. Tumblr allows for a bit more lengthier discussion. And speaking of lengthier discussion, you know where you can speak to us to your heart's content? elwoodcitylimits@gmail.com. Send in your emails. If you'd like to, we can read them on the air. Or if not, we can respond in private. Anything about this show, about Arthur, about any topics we've talked about, criticism, compliments, whatever it is, we would love to hear from you. We really would. And finally, of course, to listen to the episode, you can find us on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Elwood City Limits. And you can listen to us from there, stream from there. If you have SoundCloud as an app on your phone, you can do that too. Or, of course, the old-fashioned way, iTunes. You can subscribe to us there. And, of course, once again, we really appreciate you taking the time to rate and review us over there. Please do. We've got several good reviews. We would like your honest opinion in every sense because that's how we're going to get better. And we really love to hear from you. Lucas, before we get to your final word on the matter, Next week is going to be a little different. So I actually neglected once again to write down the episodes in question that come in order next with Arthur. But next week, we're actually going to be doing something a little bit different because next week is Christmas, for goodness sakes. And we've decided that we're going to we are going to take a week off, but more to the end of the month. For next week, we will have a new episode, but it's not going to be us talking about an Arthur episode. We are going to be basically when we start recording, we usually sometimes we spitball into a couple of topics here and there, and I've been collecting a couple of them. They're really funny, like I have to say.
Well, what I think you're trying to say is next week we're giving you an early Christmas present, and that present is some wacky bloopers.
That's right. Well, not bloopers, sort of, but they are side conversations that we've had, very general and stuff. Let us know what you think about it, and of course, we'll be wishing you happy holidays as well, and maybe a few surprises along the way as well. So we will have a regular episode, but you don't have to watch. You can leave Arthur into the new year or watch to your heart's content, and we will have some content for you coming up. So thank you for sticking around with us. Lucas, what do you got to say?
Did Mozart give it a rest? Did the guy who wrote Ring Around the Rosie give it a rest?
I don't think so, Buster. By the way, apparently no attribution to Ring Around the Rosie. So maybe the guy who wrote Ring Around the Rosie did give it a rest. We don't know.
Seems like some kind of pagan ritual to me.
For Lucas Mancini and his pagan rituals, this is Will Young. Still don't know who wrote Ring Around the Rosie, but I'll tell you who recorded this. It's me and Lucas. Thanks a lot for listening. Get in touch with us, and we'll see you next week for Christmas.